Hello guys, Chris here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing the Radeon RX 588GB model in Spider-Man Remastered. This one is the XFX GTS XXX version of the card. It has a lot of X's, so it means that it's good, obviously. And as usual, we're running the latest AMD drivers at the time of recording this video. These are the clock speeds right here. I pushed the power limit to plus 20% to consistently achieve these, otherwise it's gonna fluctuate a little bit. And you can see all of its specs here in Tech Power-Ups GPU-Z. Again, 8 gigs of GDDR5 memory, released back in 2017. This shows 1.1 right there because nothing 3D is on screen. As you can see, everything is fine there. And over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 7 5700G and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings first. I'm playing at 1080p resolution using no upscaling at the moment, but we're going to try out some FSR 2.0 as well as the IGTI, but this works like FSR 1.0. It doesn't look as good, so I will only test it once, so you can see that it doesn't look as good as FSR 2.0. TAA and anti-aliasing is being utilized, and we're also going to check out resolution scaling, dynamic resolution scaling here, to see if it helps with image quality and the frame rates, of course. We're also utilizing the very high settings with SSAO instead of HBAO+, and let's do this. And honestly, guys, I already know what to expect here because I have already recorded this entire video earlier today, and the footage that came out of it was completely unusable. It was full of artifacts. I don't know what happened with that. It was probably the other capture card that didn't agree with the RX 580 at 4K, because I have been recording everything at 4K in these Spider-Man videos. But yeah, now I'm repeating all of this. I can tell you that it's very similar to what the GTX 1066GB did in this game. I was expecting the 1060 to perform a little bit better because the RTX 3060, for example, performs quite a bit better than like the RX 6600 XT in this game. But that's not the case for older GPUs. It seems like the older GPUs aren't really as well optimized for this game, to be expected, of course, and the AMD and NVIDIA counterparts kind of perform the same, as they should, you know, so yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to find the big park area, by the way, and failing miserably at it, because, well, I always fail at things when I'm making these videos. I even fail at recording them properly, apparently. Anyways, I am a little bit mad, because that means that we can't really test it out at 1440p and 4K in this one, because I am using my older capture card, unless we use VSR, but I don't like to use VSR in these videos, guys. But anyways, as you can probably tell, it's not dropping from 40 frames per second around here, and that's actually pretty impressive because that puts this GPU slightly above the 1060 in terms of FPS, 39 right there, by the way. But yeah, the 1060 did drop to like 36 or 38, if I'm not mistaken, around here. So this is just a tad bit faster. It could be just because we set the power limit to 20% and it runs overclocked, but the other one also ran overclocked. My 1060 is an MSI Gaming X model. It comes already overclocked out of the box, like this one does. But, well, for this to achieve the rated clock speeds, you actually need to use some power limit stuff. Anyways, you can see that it's extremely playable, doesn't really stutter all that much, honestly. I've seen like a couple of stutters, but it's all right. I think it's a pretty smooth and playable experience for sure. You don't really need 60 plus all of the time. You can see that if you turn the mouse around really fast, some things are kind of like flashing around or loading. It's pretty weird. And I also noticed with AMD GPUs that the shadows pop in. Look at that. That's crazy, right? We don't have shadows right now here. I don't know why that is. I have no clue. We're playing on very high settings, but yeah, it fails to load the shadows sometimes, and it's quite a bit distracting, honestly, guys. I've also noticed that a little bit with the RX 6600 XT, but it only happened at the distance and it wasn't too distracting. But here with the 580, it's way more noticeable, all right? I don't know what they're doing with this, but it definitely needs a patch for AMD GPUs. And it's kind of weird as well. Look at that. Did you see everything loading at once there, like flashing or whatever? yeah, pretty weird stuff happening here. But yeah, I was saying it's weird to see this because this game came out on consoles first, and consoles actually run AMD hardware. So I don't know why this is not that well optimized on these Radeon GPUs. You can see it's dropping into the 30s still, around here. That's a bandwidth limitation. I came to that conclusion previously while recording this video, because the VRAM is not maxed out. It's at 6.3, 6.4 gigabytes more or less. And yet, no matter what I do, even if I play at medium settings, it always drops to around these values, 30s, 40s, while looking in this direction at the entire city. So it's just a bandwidth issue, basically. These cards are getting old, okay? Unfortunately, they are getting old. But that doesn't mean that it isn't playable, obviously. 90% of the time, it's gonna be well above 30 frames per second, even above 40. And, well, some slowdowns are gonna happen, but that's okay, right? At least for a 5-year-old mid-range GPU at the time. I mean, this, I wouldn't really complain about this. Over here, it dropped to like 32 minimum. Again, slightly better than the 1060, because the 1060 dropped to 29 up there. But this one still drops to 29 at times. And you can see a lot of pop-in once again if I move the camera around. This issue was still present, not the shadows bug, by the way, but the flashing things issue was still present with the 1060, and it was not as bad as this one for sure, but I guess it's just because they're old GPUs. The game hasn't really been optimized for old GPUs, apparently. And unfortunately, but let's go ahead and enable some FSR 2.0. Actually, IGTI first, which stands for Instagram Trigonometry Integration. No, I'm kidding. It's Insomniac Games Temporal Injection. All right, and this works like FSR 1.0. If you enable it on ultra quality, you can see that right now everything is pretty sharp because it's running at native resolution. You can see a little bit of shimmering still around some things, even at native res in this game. But yeah, I apply that and it's it really looks like FSR 1.0, basically. Everything is a little bit over-sharpened and with less detail, slightly more shimmery as well. Doesn't look bad by any means. I am actually running this on a native 1080p monitor, so it looks okay, and it gets us a little bit more FPS, but it still drops, okay, and it will still drop into the 40s, as you can see there, and even 30s, because of the bandwidth limitations that I told you about. Yeah, look at that. It's pretty much the same experience, right, as native resolution. So I honestly, guys, with these GPUs, at least in this scenario right here, I would run them at native resolution or with FSR 2.0. It depends on what you prefer, because FSR 2.0 is a little bit sharper than native resolution, but it's also a little bit more shimmery as well. So let's go ahead and enable that. FSR 2.0 on quality. I will... Oh, did you see that? Did you see the difference in visuals? It's a little bit sharper than native 1080p, for sure. And it's performing really well as well, around 60 frames per second. That's nice. I will actually restart the game, because you need to do that with FSR 2.0 for it to fully apply sometimes. And since I don't know exactly if it will have a problem with the VRAM usage, I will just restart it every time I change some setting, okay? So as you can see, we're getting around the same FPS here, 60s, maybe slightly higher after the restart. No. Not really. After it loaded, everything is the same. So basically, this is a little bit better in terms of FPS than native 1080p resolution, to be expected, but just slightly it will still drop a lot. Look at that, 40 frames per second there. Yeah, I'm just gonna climb that huge building again to see the FPS from above. It's not gonna differ too much, guys. I know, I've already tested it, okay? It's basically the same thing as the GTX 1060, even though it has 2 more gigs of VRAM. Doesn't really make too much of a difference in these scenarios right here. Where it does make a difference, however, is in that park area. Also 69 FPS average, right? A little bit. They're going up, of course, because we're looking at the sky. But yeah, you know what? Let's restart them, actually, because it just wrecked our FPS there for a second. And looking back at the city, 37. Instead of dropping to lower 30s, it will drop into the higher 30s. But over here, it's actually slightly more intensive than that. And instead of dropping to like 29, it drops to 31. It's only 2 FPS difference. Basically, it could be margin of error stuff, but I've seen this a lot of times already, so it's actually a little bit better, okay, with FSR 2.0. Unfortunately, the shadow pop-in is still there. Can't really do anything about it at the moment. You gotta wait for a fix from Insomniac Games. And yeah, it still drops into the 30s and 40s, jumping around this part of the map at least. I actually prefer the native res since the FPS are almost the same. But as I was saying previously, in this area is where you're gonna see the most differences whenever you enable FSR 2.0. And comparing to the 1060 as well, this is where the 580 actually outperforms the 1060 by quite a bit. It's basically not dropping from 50 frames per second anymore around here. So that's a quite noticeable jump, right? Because previously it dropped to like 39 minimum, and now it drops to what, like 48, I think? That's a 10 FPS improvement, but unfortunately it's not in the entire map. And when things get really intensive, FSR doesn't really do much on these older GPUs. Performance overall is pretty damn decent here for a 5-year-old RX 580 mid-range GPU at the time. I'm not complaining about it. I just think that they should definitely iron out some of these visual bugs that we're seeing here. Let's disable FSR 2.0, enable TAA there, and do high settings instead of very high right now. And you know what? Some of you actually told me that the weather particle quality is super intensive and I should turn it down to low, and it will only affect the weather, so the clouds and stuff. You can definitely tell that the clouds are more realistic, I guess. They are like volumetric clouds or whatever. Yeah, on low settings you get a ton more FPS, and I want to check that out. So high settings with low weather particle quality. Let's see if it still looks great and if it performs a lot better. It actually seems like it will perform a lot better, but we need to restart the game now. Oh, and FSR 2.0 was still enabled, so let's disable that now. Okay, so now without FSR 2.0, we're not seeing 100 FPS around here anymore, but we are seeing above 60 frames. I mean, I don't really care about the clouds, honestly. If you disable the clouds with the 1060, you're gonna get around these FPS, by the way. So keep that in mind, maybe slightly lower, but that's it. And let's see the frames here in this part of the map. Yeah, still drops into the 50s at times, but it's not bad, guys. This game is a single-player title. It's not bad even if you get 30 frames per second, in my opinion. I'm used to playing games at higher FPS, higher refresh rates, but honestly, in Spider-Man Remastered, I would be fine with a 30 FPS experience, especially playing with a controller and stuff like that. So, yeah, you can definitely have fun even if you decide to play this game at like 1440p with the RX 580, because believe it or not, it doesn't really drop by all that much compared to 1080p in that other area where we saw it at like 29 FPS or so. I think it drops to 27 at 1440p high. So if you overclock the GPU a little bit further, you can actually achieve 30 plus all of the time, even at 1440p, which is awesome, you know, because I know that some people run 1440p monitors with RX 580 still. It was actually decent for that resolution back in the days, and even today you can play a lot of games with pretty good visuals at 1440p on a card like this. But right now it is performing incredibly well. I'm not really sure if it has dropped from 60 frames per second yet around these buildings. So that's incredible, because I can't really tell much of a difference comparing high to very high. I noticed previously that the pop-in of the shadows is more noticeable at high settings than very high settings, so you might want to stick with very high here with the RX 580 until they fix that. But whenever they fix that issue, I think this is going to be a great experience here at high settings with the RX 580. And this is native resolution as well, by the way. So pretty good results so far. Trying to launch myself up into the sky, see the city from above, but here we go. Nope, not really working that well. Gotta go to that building now. Oh no, this is the part that's intensive actually, around here. Yep, 57, 55. Oh boy! Oh, the slowdowns are real. Damn, okay, didn't really drop from 30 FPS like previously on very high, so it is making a bit of a difference here, the different settings. Come on, yep, launch up into the sky in this direction, and 32 was the minimum here. Pretty much the same thing as FSR 2.0 quality, very high settings at 1080p, right? And almost 69 on average, so that's amazing. Let's go ahead and enable some FSR 2.0 on quality, see how much of a difference that makes. You can see that it's sharper, right? Just for a little comparison, all right? Wait a second. Take a look at the buildings far away. They're shimmering. Yeah, a little bit there as well. But it looks pretty sharp, right? And if you disable this, with TAA, it won't look as sharp, but it is native resolution. It's way less shimmery, like there. It's not shimmering anymore. Still a little bit right there, but it's all right. It looks pretty good. And if you disable TAA, it's the worst, right? I prefer to play this game with FSR 2.0 enabled on quality than native resolution without any anti-aliasing method, because that's super pixelated, actually, this game. It's kind of weird. Shimmering is not really happening too much, but, you know, it looks very weird. So, alright, FSR 2.0, again, shimmering, but I like it anyways. Oh, and I just remembered that somebody asked me if I could say something in Portuguese, say a word in Portuguese. So, I will say 69, because it's beautiful. That means 69, and I really hope we get 69 FPS on average right now. Okay? Alright, anyways, I will also say something in Portuguese right now. Hoje em dia eu não falo muito em português, portanto eu não sei se isto vai sair bem ou não, principalmente porque eu estou a gravar, right? The right is English. Damn it. Mas já vi boa gente a querer que eu falasse em português, portanto aqui está um bocadinho de mim a falar em português. E temos agora os 69 FPS in average, média, yes. Okay, so that's it for the Portuguese in this one, alright? Let's go to the park. You already know that if we jump off that building, it's gonna drop to like 32, 33, something like that. Pretty much the same thing. We arrived here and we're getting 60s instead of 50s now. That's actually really good, right? Wow, that's a great improvement. I like that. I was honestly expecting it not to be this good, because it was only this good at medium settings previously when I tested it first, because I didn't use the weather on low. So I actually recommend you to use weather on low, because it looks almost the same, or the same, basically. Can't tell a difference, and it performs quite a bit better, like 5 FPS or so. That's great. It's just very unfortunate that those shadows are so buggy. And let's see how it does on medium settings. Should we lower the particle quality? Weather particle quality? Low, medium doesn't really seem to make a difference in FPS, actually. So medium might be the way to go instead of low. Oh god, it's looking terrible because I disabled TAA. Okay, let's enable TAA, please. Alright, thank you very much. Here we go now. This is it. Medium settings with TAA at native 1080p. Maybe we're gonna get around the same FPS as we saw at high with low weather particles or weather effects, whatever. Yeah, let's see over here now. So far, so good. 50s, 60s. Drops a little bit more than it did previously using FSR 2.0 on high with low weather, but it is actually a little bit better than high with low weather with native resolution. So there's that. It's hovering around 60 FPS more often than not around here. That's great, guys. That's pretty damn good. All right, I like it. I like it a lot. The thing is, medium settings looks quite bad, as you probably saw already in my previous videos. The reflections are just terrible looking, and there are a ton of reflections in this game, so yeah, look at that. Not good whatsoever, but these are even worse. The lower side of the buildings is usually pretty alright when it comes to the reflections. But the higher side of them looks terrible. Take a look at these two. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird to see this, honestly. But hey, you can see that it's getting around 70 frames right now. It's a little bit better than the GTX 1060. Once again, I'm so sorry. I was actually expecting that to happen. That's always a lot of fun to see. Hi guys, how's it going? Is coffee all right? Is that even coffee? These guys are just chilling here on the rooftop. Very nice, but it's super dirty. You should clean this up, you know? Ladies, what the heck are you doing? Come on. This is filthy as heck. Come on, come on. This part is always so awkward to travel. Okay, anyway. 40s. Only dropping into the 40s right now. But I think over here it's still, yep, 30s. 37, 34. Once again, dropping to around the same values. We got like 1 or 2 more FPS than high around here. So, yeah, it is solid, guys, but it's not perfect. But I mean, I would still have a ton of fun like this. If you're wondering if you should buy this game with 580, go for it. It's a lot of fun from what I have been told. And I myself am just swinging around the city and I'm having fun as well. Let's do a little bit of FSR 2.0 so you can see that it's almost the same thing once again. Okay, so FSR 2.0 medium and restart.
I'm already late.
I'm already late. Yes, I am actually already late. You're right for once, Spidey. Because I have already made this video and I was supposed to be like finishing editing it, but no, I'm still recording it again. Alright, this is it. FSR 2.0 quality medium settings. Looking pretty good. Dropped to like, what, 45 so far? Wait a second. Wait, oh no, we need to go up. We need to go up. I forgot to count our FPS, guys. Up! Again, please. Thank you. There we go. Okay, let's do this now. Come on. Come on, grab that, please. Yes, and launch ourselves in this direction. It is still around 30-ish. It's probably still gonna drop a little bit further. Not really, but I did something a little bit weirder there, I guess. I jumped down and then went back up, so maybe it had time to load things properly and not drop into the lower 30s. But it still did drop into the 30s, and as you can see, it still is dropping into the 50s as well while jumping around here. So it's a little bit better than high, yes, but it's almost the same experience because it still drops from 60 FPS. If it was 60 plus at all times, I would actually maybe recommend you to play like this with high textures to make the reflections look great, because you have the VRAM for that, so you shouldn't really lose a ton of FPS by setting the textures to high, and it will look great. And now I just want to check it out using the dynamic resolution scale, yes, on 60 here, and I will restart to fully apply the high settings now, of course. But I'm just curious to see the visuals, you know, and compare it to what we've seen so far. So far so good, but I guess we would be getting 60 FPS around here anyway, so the dynamic resolution scaling isn't doing much. It looks like it's using FSR 2.0 for the dynamic resolution scale, honestly, because you can see some shimmering around Spider-Man when he's moving fast, and it's exactly the same as FSR 2.0. That's kind of interesting. That does that. That means that it looks pretty similar to FSR 2.0 here, if not the same, but it's probably adjusting the quality of FSR on the fly. So whenever you get 60 plus FPS, it's on quality probably. That's what it looks like, at least. And whenever it's getting 40-ish, it might drop it to like balance or something like that. Or I don't know, guys. But it looks alright. It looks pretty decent. I see why people say that dynamic resolution scale makes a big difference in this game. Yeah, I mean, why not use it? But it's almost the same experience anyways, right? I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can see that it still drops into the 40s around here. The experience on very high settings was good. The experience on high settings was good. The experience on high settings with dynamic resolution scale and FSR 2.0 and everything else was good as well. On medium, it was just good as well. It's never perfect, basically. It's never gonna be perfect, but it's pretty damn good and it's very enjoyable. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative to you and helpful in any way. And don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed it and if it was helpful in any way. And I will catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Adeus. That sounds really weird. It's goodbye in Portuguese. See you guys.